And welcome back to Our Town. So we're just going to jump right back into what we were already discussing before the break. Where are we now and what's happening? Where do we go from here?
Well, first of all, the interim group of trustees is
Which
working.
Consists of?
Rena Daibo, and Rena Sky Daibo, and Michael Daibo as an advisor on the side, Franklin Williams, and Gana Sohum, and the other two principals, Gana Sohum and Joyce Daibo and Arlie Goodleaf.
Now, is this all volunteer or are they
Yes,
being paid? Because
volunteer.
I know I've been asked a lot, and
Voluntary.
I even made a comment on the last show about consulting. I said normally consultants don't get paid, and they usually don't. So is Mike Daibo being paid for consulting?
No, it's a volunteer basis.
Okay.
Voluntary.
And that seemed to be a sticking point with some people because, you know, the issue of funding and things like that.
Yes.
And then, of course, the recent security measures at the Kahnawake Education Center, where some of the parents or members of the combined school committee also made allegations that, well, it was just very timely that they were installed now versus resulting from, you know, actually a complaint that was made, or threats that were made against staff months ago, which resulted in the security measures now taken at the education center. But some people were saying, well, it's just very timely, you know.
It is.
Yeah.
And it was nothing to do with the situation at hand.
Okay, so I just want to clear that up because I know that we did discuss it on the last show, and I felt some of those issues were still outstanding. So we've answered it, and can move on now to the to where the Board of Trustees is at right now in this process. Have they moved forward, even though there's this dissension in the community regarding, you know, the feeling of they're conducting themselves illegally?
Well, the way I see things, I think that they're going to be focusing on the governance issues. Because if people don't have a voice, then the people, well, last night, the constant complaint is that we've made people voiceless. Well, stepping back a little bit, and with the comment I made earlier about governance and process, people have to be able to make their complaints somewhere, and they have to be able to be heard properly and appropriately.
Right.
And 100 people coming out after supper, and they're angry and they need to have something addressed, and then they're told, oh no, you couldn't do this, it's not according to the rules. But the rules are not clear. The rules are not out there generally, general knowledge for everyone. It's a problem. So right there's the governance issues. That's one.
And you're talking about the Constitution?
Constitution,
Okay.
yes. And I just want to make a comment because I made it to you off camera.
Right.
The Constitution, I know from '96, which is an excellent document. It has the vision for education on there, all the parts, all the curriculum parts that are of importance, whether it was Ganyankeha, whether it was French or English or science or math. There was a commitment to the best standards for our children, and I like that.
Is there a big difference?
Well, between this Constitution and the 2005 Constitution, you'll find none of the history that went into the making of this '96 Constitution, which talked about the hurdles they went over in terms of unification and what they hoped, what they saw, what was their vision for education in Kahnawake for the future. 2005 completely obliterated that. And other documents between were still attempting to ensure that our culture and our strengths in our background was forward, and that all these other reading, writing, arithmetic were all incorporated in there too. It's only the most recent one. Now, the big issue there was, I wanted to know, had it been ratified? I heard, first of all, it was ratified, and the document I showed you says ratified 2005. Anyway, during that protest, they said, oh, it was never ratified. So right there, you don't know, don't know where you can actually stand and know what is the actual rule.
But they did say that they were operating out of the 1996 Constitution.
Except that they said it then.
Yeah.
But before then, it had this big stamp on it saying ratified 2005. So it led us to wonder, well, where's the process from 96? How does it merge into 2005? Because none of the preambular information or history was in there.
But what is the big issue with the Constitution?
Well, the fact
Is
that
the process all the same from one document to the other in
No.
terms of how parents should
No.
or anybody should follow in a
I think
complaints
what
process?
happened,
Or
what happened in that was that the process evolved, but it was never done in a manner so that people could take out the document they had at home and follow the process in there if they found that there was another document that was being followed. So then
Right.
it led to a whole bunch of parents getting together and saying, we're going to object to this, and then find, oh, you can't, because it's not that. And people are not able to point to where they're referring to in any document to disallow persons making a vote or calling a vote or making a motion for a vote.
okay, yeah, because there did
It
seem to
becomes a
be a lot
problem.
of confusion as to what Constitution was, and I mean I think they answered a lot of these questions last week. But in terms of how it materializes now on the Mohawk Council, when you guys are receiving all this information, and how do you disseminate that information and come to understand it and then make a decision? And that's where you're getting such flack over, and also because, well, it's not your place to decide because it wasn't something that the Mohawk Council of Kahnawake developed. So where is it in your authority to dismantle or disband something that was never yours to begin with?
When so many people are complaining about a lack of a voice, you're compelled, you have to do something because we are at the end of the line. Or what do they say? The buck stops here. We're the ones that have to eventually sign off on things, on financial things and on the running of the system. Now, it seems to me that education always ran, it was no problem, until suddenly you're coming up with an issue that affects a lot of people, and then the process fails them. The process does fail them. And so how do you make things better? And then people are also complaining that the standards in the school are not what they once were, and that there are other issues with the schools themselves and the standards that apply. The argument last night I heard about Quebec standards. Quebec should never be in here is what I heard. But quite frankly, we've always had Quebec standards. We all operate with the same grade 5 reading, language arts, the same grade 5 math, the same grade 6 math, right across the province. So that kids going off to high school will take exams all with the same subject matter,
Right.
same standards. So
No, I mean
There's
that's
issues.
understandable. Yeah, I mean, and I'm glad that you're open and you're answering these questions. Do you feel at this point that you stand behind your decision, and do you think that the interim, this 90 days, is going to work at this point?
Well, we don't know if it's going to work. We're hoping it's going to work. I really do hope because, and I think last night through the meeting, you could see there is people starting to come together now. So like we said in this crisis management, to me, it is working. And our goal was to have the two parties start coming together. And we didn't ask the two parties to say, could you start talking? They made the approach last night. And they approached and said, do you think we can come together? And now that's where
And you're
we're at.
talking about who specifically?
Okay, last night, Deidre Diome and Marie Robertson Biza, she's on the ad hoc committee part, and
Right.
we have with Trina Dill on her side. So now we're all starting to say let's start coming together here. Let's start making some type of concessions. How can we work it out? That's what I said in crisis management. Now it's coming together, and I hope it'll happen before 90 days. That's what our goal is. I'm not going to change my decision because I made it wholehearted thinking about our children, not the adults, and it's about the children. Our children are the ones that are going to be affected. And I'm hoping, and it's looking to that way now, we are starting to come together because now they're asking council, and I hope we're going to start those discussions as soon as possible.
Okay. We're going to wrap this show up. We have another 10 or 15 minutes or so, but don't go away. We're going to take our last commercial break. We'll be right back with more on our town. Stay tuned.